Assume. I think we can safely assume, equals it is almost certain, that interest rates will go up again soon. When it got to midnight and Paul was still not back, I began to assume the worst, equals think that the worst possible thing had happened. The report examines how assume influences decisions in education and learning. Pepper. The report examines how pepper influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why pepper is important for academic analysis. Students are expected to use pepper accurately when discussing evidence-based arguments. Destiny. She always had a strong sense of destiny. The report examines how destiny influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why destiny is important for academic analysis. Doctoral. The report examines how doctoral influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why doctoral is important for academic analysis. Students are expected to use doctoral accurately when discussing evidence-based arguments. Concept. A new concept in business travel. Are basic concepts of decent human behavior. It's very simple, once you grasp the concept. Resistant. Some people are very resistant to the idea of exercise. The report examines how resistant influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why resistant is important for academic analysis. Millennium. People who have inhabited this land for millennia. The report examines how millennium influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why millennium is important for academic analysis. Stark. In the cold dawn light, the castle looked stark and forbidding. The stark beauty of New Mexico. The report examines how stark influences decisions in education and learning. Stare. She sat there staring into space, equals looking for a long time at nothing. The report examines how stare influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why stare is important for academic analysis. Refundable. A refundable deposit is payable on arrival. The report examines how refundable influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why refundable is important for academic analysis. Enhance. Good lighting will enhance any room. The publicity has enhanced his reputation. The report examines how enhance influences decisions in education and learning. Convention. The city's new convention center. A convention for science fiction fans. The report examines how convention influences decisions in general academic topics. Antiseptic. The antiseptic properties of copper sulfate have never been questioned. Polyurethane is a kind of excellent anti-corrosion material. Material has excellent antiseptic effect on metal substrate. Don't just give money, go volunteer somewhere so you can have direct interactions with people. Your life is too antiseptic and it is making you a bit boring. Calcium. Dairy source of protein and calcium. Like fiber, calcium binds with fat molecules and helps flush them out through the intestine. What you eat and drink, from childhood on, is critical to the amount of calcium in your bones. Refusal. Her country suffered through her refusal to accept change. The report examines how refusal influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why refusal is important for academic analysis. Purchase. You can purchase insurance online. The growing demand to purchase goods on credit. Where did you purchase the car? Shore. We could see a boat about a mile from shore. Only a few survivors reached the shore. She began to swim to shore. Team. For most of the year, the area is teeming with tourists. The report examines how team influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why team is important for academic analysis. Stylish. A stylish woman in her 40s. Jack is quite stylish. A stylish restaurant in the West End. Bypass. A triple heart bypass operation. The report examines how bypass influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why bypass is important for academic analysis. Equal. Our Constitution states that all men are equal. The report examines how equal influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why equal is important for academic analysis. Optometrist. I see what I would consider a normal patient population, representative of the average experience most people are having. Brooklyn optometrist Justin Bazan, a paid consultant to the Vision Council. The report examines how optometrist influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why optometrist is important for academic analysis. Silicon. But the brittleness of silicon limits its uses. They consist of silicon, sand, and metal, so there's no any connection to dinosaurs. Besides, we may see corrosion on some of them. Because silicon, the main component of semiconductors, breaks down at about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, some experts believe a new material will be needed in a decade or so. Fund. The fund was set up to try to save the cathedral. The report examines how fund influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why fund is important for academic analysis. Gravity. The force of gravity. The report examines how gravity influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why gravity is important for academic analysis. Moderation. Some people think drinking in moderation can prevent heart disease. The report examines how moderation influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why moderation is important for academic analysis. Recipient. The largest recipient of U.S. foreign aid. The report examines how recipient influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why recipient is important for academic analysis. Commonwealth. The Asian, Caribbean, and African members of the Commonwealth. The report examines how Commonwealth influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why Commonwealth is important for academic analysis. Marsupial. The smallest marsupial in all the world is but 45 millimeters in length. So small that when fully grown it can stand comfortable in a dessert spoon. A long-tailed marsupial mouse is found only in the Kimberley region of Western Australia. This timid creature rarely ventures far from its nest. Wallabies are marsupial mammals like kangaroos and eat diets high in vegetation. Alight. The car was set alight and pushed over a hill. The report examines how alight influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why alight is important for academic analysis. Enfranchise. The company voted to enfranchise its 120 women members. The report examines how enfranchise influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why enfranchise is important for academic analysis. Finance. The concerts are financed by the Arts Council. The report examines how finance influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why finance is important for academic analysis. Stash. We went for the bottle of whiskey that we had stashed behind the bookcase. The report examines how stash influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why stash is important for academic analysis. Incur. The government had also incurred huge debts. The report examines how incur influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why incur is important for academic analysis. Inundate. After the broadcast, we were inundated with requests for more information. The report examines how inundate influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why inundate is important for academic analysis. Studio. The report examines how studio influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why studio is important for academic analysis. Students are expected to use studio accurately when discussing evidence-based arguments. Regulate. Strict rules regulating the use of chemicals in food. The report examines how regulate influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why regulate is important for academic analysis. Complementary. The computer and the human mind have different but complementary abilities. The report examines how complementary influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why complementary is important for academic analysis. Gland. The report examines how gland influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why gland is important for academic analysis. Students are expected to use gland accurately when discussing evidence-based arguments. Disempower. The report examines how disempower influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why disempower is important for academic analysis. Students are expected to use disempower accurately when discussing evidence-based arguments. Payable. The rent is payable in advance. The report examines how payable influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why payable is important for academic analysis. Premise. The idea that there is life on other planets is the central premise of the novel. The report examines how premise influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why premise is important for academic analysis. Suppression. The report examines how suppression influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why suppression is important for academic analysis. Students are expected to use suppression accurately when discussing evidence-based arguments. Controversial. The controversial issue of welfare reform. A highly controversial equals very controversial plan to flood the valley in order to build a dam. He is a controversial figure equals person who does controversial things in the art world. Payment. You can make a payment in any bank. They fell behind on their mortgage payments. The report examines how payment influences decisions in education and learning. Attain. More women are attaining positions of power. The report examines how attain influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why attain is important for academic analysis. Unprejudiced. Narrator. This is a tale about an unprejudiced heart, and how it changed our valley forever. The report examines how unprejudiced influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why unprejudiced is important for academic analysis. Tenant. The desk was left by the previous tenant. The report examines how tenant influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why tenant is important for academic analysis. Gallery. An exhibition of African art at the Hayward Gallery. The report examines how gallery influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why gallery is important for academic analysis. Deputy. Jack Lang, France's Minister for Culture, and his deputy, Catherine Tosca. The report examines how deputy influences decisions in education and learning. In the lecture, researchers explain why deputy is important for academic analysis.